Hey, what's up guys, this is Mekkah, and welcome to the Fire Emblem 5 character guide. This is not a tier list, this is a very different thing from a tier list, but I'll still talk about characters, don't worry. So, Fire Emblem 5 has a lot of different characters with a lot of different niches, and one of the most fun things about it is that you can make almost anyone good, anyone you want, thanks to like scrolls, skill books, and stat boosters. So that makes it hard to determine who's like the best ever. I could make like a proper tier list out of this with like S rank, A rank, D rank, whatever. That would be fun for like discussions and like do it with Mank sometime. But what I wanted to do is give you like a guide on which characters are good when you have them. So I won't take availability into account. Instead, I'm going to divide characters into three groups: great, alright, and meme. Great are units that are pretty much great whenever you have them. So if you have a choice on whether to deploy them or not, you should usually deploy them. With some exceptions, but generally they'll be the best unit you have available. They're just good for various reasons. Alright is for characters that are a little more niche, like they won't always be good when you have them. Some characters join fairly early on, but they're not that good throughout the whole game. Maybe they're good for a couple chapters and then kind of fall off, and it just won't be that good. But these characters, like, they'll still be usable, you can still train them to be good, but they'll not be as good as the great tier units. And the meme tiers are units that take the most work to be good, because they're just underwhelming combat wise and they don't really offer anything unique to compensate. They can't use like high rank stabs or anything. They're just memes basically, but they can still be made into good units if you try hard enough, but it will take you a while. It will take you quite a bit of effort, but it can still be done. So that's the idea behind these things. So pretty much always use whenever you want to if you want a good unit. Take a bit more work or be a bit more mediocre overall, and then units that take a lot of work to be good, but you can still make them good if you want to. So let's hop into it. So first one is Leaf. I'm going to put him in great tier, or great rank, whatever you want to call it. It still looks like a tier list to me. Leaf is a very weird unit that I can't really properly cover in like a short video like this. But the thing with Leaf is he's always available and always pretty okay. His stats are absolute garbage, but he has a lot of things about him that make him better. He has like a leadership star, movement star, adept, which are like little things. The light brand is really good for him. Gives him 1-2 range, which gives him a lot of flexibility. And if you just give him a speed ring, it's like the only resource he really needs. He can double with it, and that makes him very valuable throughout the whole game. He's pretty nice. He doesn't cost a deployment slot either. It sucks that he promotes late though. He's probably the worst unit that's going to be put in great tier, but I think he's great tier nonetheless. Finn is definitely also a great tier unit. He is really powerful. With the Brave Lance, he kills just about everything. Very hard to kill thanks to his high bulk and then the +10 luck from the Brave Lance and the miracle chance as well. He has a chance to survive any lethal attack as well. And he's really good at capturing with the Brave Lance because it just always hits twice. Even if he doesn't double, he can capture just about any unit you want to. Or just kill something, like both of those work very well. Just a very useful unit. Also has a leadership star to contribute, that's also very nice. Orson also is going to go in great tier, of course. Everyone knows about the bougie memes. Orson just is a character that's both bulky and very offensively strong because he crits just about always. He has Wrath, so he always crits on a counter attack. Bougie gives him 1-2 range and higher critical. And then he also has a higher pursuit critical rate. So that means that on the second attack, he gets like triple chance to crit. And when he's using the Bougie, that's 100% of the time. Killer Axe, basically the same thing. It's a really powerful unit overall. Alvin often gets called like a mini Orson or something, which, I mean, I think they're so different from each other. Like, the only thing they have in common really is their class and weapon type, but everything else just screams alright. Like, Alvin is around all game long, but he's never really that good compared to your other units. He has trouble one-rounding things later on. Like, early on you can one-round soldiers and stuff, but that's about it. He's okay. He's like the definition of an alright unit that's available throughout the whole thing. I don't really like him very much, but with a Brave Axe or a Killer Axe, you can still one-round some stuff, but as I said, it takes a bit more work. Aphel, when you have her, you should definitely deploy her. She's absolutely amazing at killing everything. She has 20 speed at base, doubles everything, fairly high crit rate, I think. Adept as well, can use the Fire Sword, which is really good against bosses, because a lot of them are on gates or thrones, which give +10 avoid. I mean, +10 defense, which is hard to pierce, but with the Fire Sword, she just cuts right through, and that's just amazing. You should make use of her when you have her. Don't solo like the whole chapter with her, but definitely use her. There are some like story things that I could talk about with Avel that like impact her thing, but I won't, because spoilers. Dagdar is just a really good unit in general. He joins early on, and he's just super powerful. Really high bulk, like endgame worthy, people often say. Later in the game, that bulk actually gets cut a little bit. Like, he's pretty bad against magic for one, and his res is pretty low, so that makes him bad late game. But early on, oh my god, he's so powerful. Again, with the Brave weapon, the Brave axe, he can capture just about anything. He has the accost skill, which will also let him attack often enough, again, as long as he's faster. Like when Dagdar has more speed and more HP than the enemy at the beginning of the battle, he will just initiate another round of combat. And that means that with the Brave axe, he can attack like 8 times, so it doesn't even matter if he misses like 3 or 4 times, it doesn't matter, he'll still capture the enemy, which is great. Really powerful unit, even in mid game. You'll find that later on he'll get a bit worse, but for how good he is early on and how usable he still is later on, for just like how little effort you have to put into him, he just doesn't need no training at all. So yeah, just a really powerful unit. Tanya is gonna be our first meme tier unit. Archers, of course, have a lot of trouble in Fire Emblem in general, and in this game it means they cannot capture and they still cannot enemy phase counter, which sucks. The only good thing about Tanya, objectively speaking, is that she supports both Orson and Dagdar, and that means that she gives them plus 10 hits, avoid, crit, and crit avoid. And I think they're mutual supports each of these, so she also gets those back, so that can help her crit a little bit more. She has an okay pursuit critical rating, which means she can crit a fair bit, but it's really not good enough to be like, alright. I think she's definitely a meme tier unit. Marty, same thing. I love Marty parties and all, but oh my god, he's pretty hard to get going combat-wise. Skill and speed are literally 0. His accuracy is always going to be garbage, he will never double. He is, however, pretty good early on for when you've got another unit that captured something, say Finn or Dagdar captured an enemy. You can put Marty next to them and have him take the items and also swap and release the enemy from them. And that will get you, that means that next turn your unit won't be weighed down by the enemy unit they're holding because Marty took them off their hands. So that's pretty good use of Marty early on, but it's not enough to put him in alright tier in my opinion. His stats are just too bad, but he is a really fun unit to use, I will say. Speaking of units that are really fun to use, we got Ronan here. I love Ronan to death, he is my favorite boy. There is no doubt in my mind that he is actually a meme. I will say that if you manage to get Ronan to promotion, which I never really found hard in Iron Man runs, and he's pretty good with the Brave Bow, that actually negates the strength issue a fair bit. But the problem is, of course, getting him there takes like a lot of favoritism. So I'm gonna have to put my boy in meme tier. He has adept and he has movement stars and everything else, but in the end, it's still a meme unit. I think you could actually argue for putting him in here, but I'm gonna play it safe so that no one calls me out on favoritism. I'm just gonna put him in here. But again, you can use anyone in Thracia. Safi, or Safia, I guess as she's called now, she goes in great tier for sure. She joins with like C rank staves, but very close to B, and she will be the first one to reach A staves, which means she can use the warp. And warp skipping is a huge part of Thracia, so that alone warrants putting her up there. But she also can use like a bunch of other staves, including her personal staff, the hammer, to repair usually warp staves, but you can repair things like the light brand as well if you want to, or like the Puji. It doesn't really matter. The point is, Safia can do all those things, and those are all great. You gotta keep her away from enemies though, because if an enemy gets to her, she just instantly gets captured, and the enemy will take all her stuff besides the hammer and staff, because the hammer and staff is a personal weapon, and enemies cannot take those. But you gotta be very careful when using her, but if you are, she's absolutely great. Lifis is also very good. Again, not because of combat, because he sucks at fighting, he really does. But Lifis is seen here mostly because he can pick locks. With his lockpick, he can pick chests, and he can steal from enemies. He can steal like vulneraries, and more importantly probably tomes that Asphalt can use. Fire and thunder tomes are always very welcome. By doing so, he's both giving you what they already steals, and he's also making an enemy like disarmed, which is also really great. He doesn't have to build to steal more than just a little bit of those. Like the heavier weapons he cannot steal unless you like build abuse him, which is not recommended because it takes forever. But that's still really useful. Generally you can steal like tomes and some light swords, so that's pretty nice. Matcha is a good example of like a temporarily used unit that's kind of mediocre in the long term. When she first joins in the Untitled chapters, she can double, but she usually doesn't one round. She can one round like soldiers and mages maybe with the steel sword, but sometimes she ends up like a couple points short. She has okay pursuit critical, but that doesn't really help her until you get her hands on killing edges, and those are limited. And it also doesn't give her like 2 range. She can use Axis after promotion, but she's really not that great with him. I don't really like Matcha as a long-term unit. I think she's okay she takes more work than the units up here to be useful for longer than like just the master chapters. Brighton, kind of the same deal as Matcha, honestly. When he first joins, he's dismounted, so he can only use swords, but I actually think chapter 4 is his best chapter, because he's one of the few units that's able to fight right off the bat. He can wrath crit enemies to death, just like Orson. The problem with Brighton is if he misses that hit where he's about to get wrath, which is any time the enemy attacks him, and if he doesn't get that wrath hit, he's very much worthless. He's also very bad against 2-range enemies for this reason, because he just cannot counter them with wrath intact. Outdoors he gets his mount and he gets to use axes, but at that point he's just not that good at combat anymore. Everyone else just kind of surpasses him. It's hard to explain, but if you play it, you'll definitely feel that Brighton falls off a little bit. You'll find him much less useful. But he can still be like used long term. Like a unit with Wrath will never be outright bad, but somehow Brighton just doesn't get the job done as well as he does in chapter 4 when he's outdoors. Laura is absolutely amazing. She is a thief just like Liffis, except without the ability to steal a lot of things, which sounds bad, but just having a thief in Mancer alone is pretty good. And then like halfway through the game she can promote into a dancer, and of course the dancer is like automatic great tier, so that's really good. Fergus is one of my favorite units. He has a really high pursuit critical of 5, and lets him crit just about any time on second attack. It's like people praise Rutger for having a lot of crit, but you should check out Fergus if you like Rutger, because with a rapier alone he'll have like 80% crit at base level or something. If he has Karen in range, same thing, because Karen and Fergus support each other. And like any crit boost he gets, it just gets multiplied by 5 on a second attack, so he's very reliable at critting things. And with the rapier in general, he's just very good against armor knights, or really any enemy. You can kill any enemy in Mancer, as long as he double attacks them and has enough strength, which is most of the time against most enemies. Definitely a great tier unit. He has his flaws though, like not having his mount indoors, but having a mount outdoors though is very good. And he also is one of the few characters that has a mount that shares his weapon type indoors and outdoors. Like Brighton, he has to switch between swords and axes, which can be kind of annoying for him sometimes. Fergus just always uses swords, and that means he's going to have a high sword rank, and he's going to be able to use like the fire sword and the brave sword. Karen is very bad at fighting, but flying alone is useful enough to put her in great tier. Flying is just, in chapter 6 is probably the best example of Karen being useful because of being a flyer. She can get anywhere to any village and visit it. But later on there'll be just a couple of chapters where Karen just gets the job done that everyone else has so much trouble doing, and she's your only flyer for such a long time that it would be really hard to play this game without using Karen. I missed her so much in my first Iron Man run. You would not believe how hard it was to have her dead in those runs. She's really nice. I always get the leg ring to her too. It lets her get a couple of villages and other side objectives more easily without taking any risks, but that's personal preference for me. I wouldn't recommend everyone do that. But yeah, flying alone is nice. I would not bother trying to train her for combats. She's gonna be pretty bad at fighting no matter what you do, unless you like really heavily invest into her with like the Wrath Scroll or Paragon, and like give her like a lot of stat boosters, or train her strength with a strength scroll or something. That takes a lot of effort. I would just recommend you use her for her flying capabilities, and that's it. But the flying alone makes her pretty great. Dashin, I mean, this is Chaz, so he automatically goes in min tier. He's very bulky, I'll say that much. He's very strong, but his accuracy leaves a lot to be desired, and he's very slow. And magic also does a big number on him. The thing is with Dashin, it's like he has so much weight that it's hard to carry him around. So if you have your unit with like even a unit like Matcha in an outdoor map, they can get by just by being rescue dropped. But Dashin is so heavy that other units lose movement when they try to pick him up and drop him somewhere else. So he's actually a liability in that way, and that's kind of annoying when you want to get him somewhere fast, and he falls behind very quickly. And yeah, I mean, he has the doubtful distinction that he's the only person who can use lances indoors besides Xavier, but he's like E rank lances after promotion, so that's completely worthless. Weapon triangle is only 5% in this game. He should just focus on axes. He should just use like the Brave Axe. If you bring that into Manster, he can be pretty alright. But I would not recommend it really. If you want a good unit, I would not go to Dashin basically. Asbel, also another one of my favorite units. He's so good. He is the best boss killer in the game. He has a personal tome called the Graph Caliber that crits whenever he attacks for a second time, because his pursuit critical is so good, and Graph Caliber has like 30%, 40% innate crit chance. He's just so accurate. 1-2 range is amazing. He's a little fragile, so I tend to give him like defensive stat boosters like the life rings. You get 2 very early on that you can use, as well as a shield ring if you want to. All those are really nice on him. But even if you don't give them to him, he's still really good. Easily the best guy for killing really tough bosses like Gomez. But you can use him just about any chapter you want and he'll be amazing for you. He's absolutely fabulous. This is the best combat unit in the game by far. Despite his fragility. Like having 1-2 range perpetually is just unheard of how good it is. Speaking of perpetual 1-2 range, here's Nana. She has the Earth Sword, which also gives her 1-2 range, and Nosferatu always, which is very powerful. Her stats aren't that great, but the Earth Sword kind of compensates for it. She also heals people because she's a troubadour after all, and a mounted healer outdoors, but even indoors this is really nice. And she also has a charm skill that will boost other people's hit and avoid by 10% if she's nearby, in like 3 square range. And she also supports Leaf and Finch, so she boosts them even more when she's nearby. She's just really good all around. Very good utility unit. Her combat is not that great, but I like to give her the Wrath Scroll. That way she always counter with a critical hit attack. And when you combine that with the Earth Sword, that means that when she gets hit, she counters with an HP draining critical hit. So she can solo like entire armies if you want to. But that is a resource investment, I will say. There are other units that could use Wrath, such as Lenoan. So whether you want to give that to her is up to you, but it is pretty nice. Hicks, I'm going to put him in meme tier. He is very slow, like his speed is just not good. He is mounted, which is nice, but that makes him very bad for indoor maps. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in this game. He's only around for a very tiny little bit of Manster. He's alright during that time, but not fantastic. He's just a good rescue bot. And like I like Hicks, he's very durable to his credit. Like there are things you can do with him, but I don't think he belongs up here in alright, and definitely doesn't belong here in great. Again, doesn't mean he's unusable, but he's alright. Shiva, I'm gonna put him in alright. Not because his combat is very bad per se. He does have high pursuit critical. He is pretty good with like killing edges and fire swords. He can kill enemies just fine. He's just not as good as these guys up here. And he's just limited to all these good swords, because with like an iron sword he will not kill things, so he's gonna need some kind of good weapon to do it. And when Shiva joins, the most combat heavy portion of the game is kind of over. You need like more niche units at that point after that. Like you have a couple units that can take care of all the combat pretty much. It's kind of tough to explain, but you won't really find Shiva all that useful in a blind playtest through or just playing through the whole game. He can't do a whole lot of things, but he's still a pretty good Myrmidon. He's still promoted to Swordmaster. He still gets added upon promotion. He has Soul, which can heal him up whenever he gets in trouble. Although you gotta hope it procs, I guess. I've never been a big fan of Soul, but when you combine it with the critical hit from Shiva, it can heal him up just in time. But I don't think he's good enough to be up there. Carrion, gonna go in meme, because Carrion has very low bases, but very high growth, so if you're into that kind of thing, you can use him, and he's actually pretty good. But that will take a lot of work. His weapon ranks are also very bad at base level. I know you can train him up with like the Paragon Sword. A lot of people like attribute the Paragon Sword to him because he gets it in the convo. But in reality, anyone with E-Swords can use the Paragon Sword, so I don't think it's fair to say Carrion can be really good with the Paragon Sword and not apply that to other sword characters. But Carrion, he can be good when trained, but it takes quite a bit of effort to do. He does have 5% critical though, so if you give him like a rapier or something, he will usually crit. Usually gets a support leaf. He gets a support bonus from Leaf as well. Safina is, I would put her in alright, because at base level already she has the ability to use killer bows, the brave bow, and she also has the accost skill, just like Dagdar. So that means she will attack quite a bit from range, and accost is probably best used on a ranged unit anyway, because it means when she activates an extra round of combat, she won't be getting counterattacked. Of course, the drawback of this is that if Safina gets attacked, and even if she doesn't counter, she can still proc a cost, which she will do always if she has more speed and HP than the enemy. So sometimes the enemy will just double her, and she won't be able to do anything back. Like a ballista can just one-round her sometimes. So that's pretty annoying to deal with. You don't really want that. So you gotta be very careful when you use her. But for a mounted Arch Knight, she's pretty alright. I would you should try it out at least once if you're playing Thracia multiple times, but she's kind of tough to use for a first timer. So I don't know if I would recommend that for a first time playthrough. But she's alright. Kain and Elba, they're basically the same unit. Again, if you're into like low base, high growth units with low base levels in their weapon ranks, then go for it. But I would not recommend anyone goes to these for like an easy to use right off the bat kind of unit. They're not unusable, but they're not easy to use either. Same goes for Robert. Like these two are Lance Knights and this guy's an Arch Knight, but they're all kind of the same deal. They're scrubs, but they can turn into good units if you train them a lot, and I mean a lot, because their bases are trash. Fred, he's pretty easy to use actually. I'll put him in alright because he's not broken or anything, but he's a pre-promoted paladin that joins like roughly midway through the game. And his stats are alright. You don't expect him to like kill everything in one round. Like he's gonna leave people with some hit points remaining. And he's not gonna last forever or anything, but he can hold his own. He can do pretty alright. He has pretty good weapon ranks. Pretty sure he has an A rank in swords at least. And that's really good. So he can do like some kind of filler jobs, but he's not end game ready at base level or anything. He's just good, but not super amazing. He's just alright. Olwen, I kind of doubt on where to put her, because at one hand she has Dire Thunder, which is like theoretically really strong. It's a Brave Tome, as you probably know, and that means it hits twice, or you'd hope it hits twice, because it's pretty inaccurate. And it also weighs her down, so it turns her into a glass cannon. And Olwen is one of the most fragile units in the entire game. Between her lack of avoid and her low HP and defenses, she can get killed very easily, so she's very risky. And at the point where she joins, there's really not much use for a unit like this. Like, you don't really need a kind of player phase assassin kind of thing. There's not a whole lot she can do. Like, she can use wind instead of Dime Thunder, and that will give her some avoid, but it's still not enough to be reliable. But I don't know if she's bad enough for meme tier or not. I'm gonna put her in alright just to be safe, but she's definitely not amazing. She gets another personal weapon later on in the game, the Holy Sword, but that weapon is just kind of bad, honestly. It's not really worth spending a warp on or trying to get. Like, you'll know what it is when you see it, trust me, but it's not good enough. Like, trust me, it's not that good. It seems good, but it's not. But no spoilers. Marita, she's alright. Kind of like Shiva, she's a Myrmidon with a high crit rates. She has a personal sword, the Marita sword. And you might have changed the name in the patch, I don't know. But she can kill a lot of things with it. But the problem with the Marita is just she joins it with very low stats in strength, HP, and defense. But she also is a low level, so she's easy to train up, but it takes some effort. Like, if she joined with these stats in like chapter 4 or chapter 6, like when Shiva joins, I might have put her up here. But as it is, I don't think she's good enough to be in that tier. But she can become like one of the best boss killers in the game. She does have Luna, or Moonlight Sword, whatever it's called now. I think it's called Luna. That can let her pierce defenses and stuff, but all that stuff is like kind of unreliable. But she can turn into like a pretty good offensive unit. It's just you don't really need that much of an offensive presence at that point in the game. You just need like one good boss killer. That can usually be Asphel. Salem, very good staff bot, gonna put him in here. He joins with C staves, but when he promotes he gets one more weapon rank, so that goes up to B. So you only gotta get him like 50 weapon XP in staves to get him to A rank, and anyone who can get to A rank staves in any amount of time is good in my book. Like being able to use warp, rescue, rewarp, restore, silence, sleep, that kind of stuff with like reasonable magic too. That's just really good. He can also attack kind of, he can use like all kinds of magic and stuff. But yeah, make him use some physics, some torches, anything you can give him, like ensorcel, all those things just to make him get to B rank quickly. Because when you promote him and he gets A rank, he's just super useful. Parn, he is like a promoted version of Lithus, except with a lot of more tools. He has 5 movement stars for one, which is a lot of fun. He has 5 pursuit critical to Lithus' 0, so he's like a better version of Lithus when he joins, and he's pretty damn handy. He comes with a weapon that you'll want to give to like other people, the King Sword, so I don't really count that in his favor or anything, because it's just a really good sword that he happens to be able to use. But he can be pretty good with that weapon if you want him to be, but he can use just about anything, because he's an A rank in swords. But he can also steal stuff, open locks, open doors, open chests. Just a very good unit in general. Kind of fragile though, kind of low HP, kind of low defense, so you gotta be a little bit careful. But as long as you're a little bit careful, he's good. Trude, kind of the same unit as Marita almost, even though a lot of people will probably disagree with me on that. He's like bulkier and less flashy, because he has like less pursuit critical. He has Nihil instead of Luna. He doesn't have his own personal sword or anything, but he can just use a silver sword or something and just one round something. He's pretty alright for what he does at the point of the game, but you don't really, like, just like Marita and with Shiva, there's just not much of a demand for this kind of a unit. But that doesn't mean he's bad. There are definitely places where Nihil is useful, probably less than places where Luna is useful, but Trude is easier to train up probably because he's more bulky, and he can hold his own a little bit more, he can take more hits, he's more safe in enemy phase. Like Trude I think is a little bit underrated, but not that much. He's not super great or anything, but he's not a meme tier unit. Tina is very good, very useful. She has 2 personal staffs, the Thief Staff and the Unlock Staff, and both of those are very handy to have. Thief Staff lets you obtain some items that you could never obtain otherwise, such as the Sleep Sword, which is very useful. and just a lot of other random weapons, like, I don't know, Master Lances if you want them to, Master Axes. You can steal Ballistas if you really want to, disable those. Very flexible. She does have really low magic, so she needs some help from like either good growths or just like the Ensorcel Staff, but that can be alright. Holy Water works as well. Another problem with Tina, she misses a lot. She has a very low base skill of like 1, and that means she has like 64% hit with staves at first. It does grow up, and at some point she'll be able to hit reliably, but that will take a long time. And until then, she's gonna miss like half the time. That can be helpful because whenever she misses with like the Thief Staff, she'll still get the amazing weapon experience from the staff. She gets like 5 or 10 in one shot or something. Even if she misses, but then it doesn't consume a use, so you'll get more uses out of it. But it can be annoying if you like really need her to hit for a turn and she misses. That kind of sucks. She can kind of compensate with one of her like 5 movement stars that she can trigger. That can be really nice. But again, it's not reliable. Tina has like very RNG sometimes, but as long as you give her enough turns to hit her mark, she'll usually get the job done. And the staffs she has are just super amazing. Glade is basically just a portable leadership star. I'm gonna put him in alright for that. He's a good filler, just like Fred. Don't expect him to do everything on his own, but he can get a couple of things done. He can use Silver Lances at base level. Indoors, he's just leadership star really, because he only has an E rank in swords, so you kind of want to just use him outdoors. But god damn, he's a leadership star alone is just pretty good. I can't really put anyone in meme tier for that, and his combat is alright enough. So I think this is a good spot for him. If you didn't notice already, I'm not putting units in like order of like utility. I'm just putting them like one after another in the tier, not ordering them within tiers basically. Dean, oh god, I love Dean so much, but don't treat him as hard, because that's what I did in several runs and he died because of it. Rip Iron Man runs. But Dean is a really good Draco Knight pre-promote, high pursuit critical, like 3 or 4 I believe. So with the Kill Lance he should almost always crit, and alone is pretty good. He gets a Dragon Lance personal lance, which is alright, but not super amazing, because it takes a lot of effort to get, and it doesn't really improve him all that much in my opinion, but it is fun to try and get it in chapter 14. You gotta visit like a specific house with him while the house is being guarded by a lot of strong enemies. But he's really good, I can't deny it, he's really good. But don't make him solo the game, because he can't do that. Even indoors he's good, by the way, because he has both A rank in lances and in swords. Edda is mini Dean, very mini Dean. She can be trained, but it's pretty hard. I would almost put her here honestly, because she's just that low level. But I think she's easy enough to train where I could reasonably put her here if I wanted to. I'm kind of in doubt still. I'm going to put it here because having a flyer is just so nice even in the mid game. Not for all maps, like at some point you see mostly indoor maps, and at some point there's just no use for flyers anymore. So maybe she is meme tier, but I don't think she's quite that bad. I would recommend you use Edda if you feel like it, but she has some issues for sure. Like her durability is not nearly as good as Dean's or most of your units at this point really. She's like very weak to bows, for instance, so you gotta be really careful where you put her. But if you are careful, she's quite alright, let me just put it that way. And she can help rescue dropping units. That's useful in like the next 2 chapters after the chapter she joins in. So yeah, fun to use, but takes quite a bit of work. But even if you don't train her, you can make use of her flyer utility, and that's alright. Homer, oh boy, I'm gonna put him in alright. He has some trouble getting up to speed, but when he does, oh boy. He has Paragon, and he joins with like all kinds of magic types. So it's easy to get to a Sage, and you know, if you're a Sage, you're pretty good in this game. Sages are just super good, because they have a good promotion bonus, and Homer also has like 5% critical, so if he doubles, he kills something pretty much always. He's kind of fragile but hard to get there, but when he does get up there, he's pretty good. It just takes a bit of work, but Paragon makes it easier than for most units. The known staff bots just go in here automatically. Like having staves, having access to A rank staves at some point is just great. The known might be one of the worst staff bots, but not the worst, because she joins with C rank and she cannot promote until chapter 21 because she has a story based promotion. So that means that for most of the time she'll have C or B rank, and it'll take a while for her to get to A rank. But when she does, that'll be very nice. And her growths are good, her bases are good. She's very fragile, as you would expect of a magic user, but very high magic, and what else? Speed. I think her speed growth is pretty good too. She's a good candidate for Wrath, because just like Nana, she has an HP draining weapon. In her case, it's Nosferatu, which is kind of like the same thing. So you're gonna have to choose between them if you want a really good Wrath user. But Stab's just super good in general. Ralph is a great filler actually. I'm gonna put him up here all the way. I think he's like a a leg above someone like Fred or Glade or some other kind of filler combat unit. Ralph's combat is just really good in like overall. You can do just about anything. You can use just about any sword or axe you want him to. He has A rank as swords and almost a B rank in axes, and there's no A rank axe, so you can use every axe you want him to in a reasonable time frame. He's really good at killing stuff. Kind of a boring guy, I know, but holy god, he's so powerful. Very bulky too. Same for Ilios, really. When you do get him, he's just a very bulky guy that can kill most things in one round, because he can use all kinds of weapons. Yeah, like Ilios has no pursuit critical to speak of, so when he doubles, he's just not gonna crit. But nonetheless, he has enough power with either swords or tomes to get the job done. I'm not saying that in the tier list I would not put Ilios and Ralph this high because they're not that available and they're not like super overpowered or anything. But this is basically saying once you have these characters, you should deploy them in almost every map where you want some combat, because he's really good. Shroof, I mean, A rank staves, you can't really put him anywhere else besides great. When you have him, you should use him, other than when he's fatigued, maybe. Fatigue is a bit of a problem, which is why having more than one A rank staff user, like having more than 5 A rank staff users, is so helpful. Still has very little to distinguish himself from others, besides like his movement stars. Those are not reliable, but they can be fun when you activate, I guess. But just staves, super good. Misha, I would say she's not quite meme level, but at the same time, she's not that good at fighting. I'm still going to put her alright, because at base level, she actually has decent stats. It's just you can't really do a whole lot with them. Because, I don't know, when the moment she joins, there's not much use for her fighting level, because most maps are indoors, so her flying is pretty much a non-factor. And, I don't know, she has good weapon ranks, she has okay stats, but not so good that they like stand out as much as someone like Ralph or Ilios, so I think she's just alright. But I don't think she's bad enough to be down here. Sara, another really good staff bot, same class as the Lowen's sister. Both of these promote to Sage, by the way. That's why another reason why they're so good. Sara has a bunch of random skills like Wrath and Miracle and Paragon. Out of those, I think only Paragon is really useful because it gets its promotion really fast. She joins at level 7 and she can promote at level 10, and she should. She has amazing growth, but she should just promote ASAP to get those juicy promo bonuses and go from 5 to 7 move. And I don't know, she goes from B to A stats by promoting within 3 levels, Paragon levels at that. This is really, 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 really useful unit for pretty much no work. She can do just about anything you want her to staff-wise and magic-wise, and her growth are just so insane. Shanna, definitely a meme tier. His combat is awful. He has like worse stats than Shiva, while being like an entire tier higher and joining so much later. And he has a bargain skill, which doesn't really do anything at that point in the game. There's no shops where you want him to be. There's like a secret shop in the end game if you got the member card, but I know you don't got the member card, so yeah, Shanna is bad. He's really bad. Miranda's also a meme. Fun fact, credits to Falcom for finding this out. If you have Miranda is like a mage that promotes into a mage knight, and that means that if you put her in an indoor map, she has like 6 move, but if you promote her in an indoor map, she goes down to 5 move because of the dismount penalty, which is just gross. Yeah, Kaga did it first, guys. Miranda has just very bad stats. She has Wrath, but you don't really want her to get attacked because she's so fragile, so Wrath is pretty worthless on her. Bad unit. Xavier, provided you go through the pain of recruiting him, which I'm not counting against him here, Xavier is super good whenever you have him, because he's super bulky, he has Wrath, so he'll kill everything in the counter. He is someone who you want to get attacked, because he can take hits pretty well, besides magic hits. He also has a cost, so that can be a little tricky against dark magic and other magic types. But overall, he's just a really solid combat unit. He has good weapon ranks, especially in the bow department. He can use the Brave Bow, but he can also use a Master Axe if you want him to. Like, both of those are really good options for him. And he'll kill just about anything you want him to. He needs to reach those spots first, but in the maps where Xavier is around, it usually isn't too hard to reach anything. So I don't hold that against him very much. He's one of the best generals in the series, actually. Imelda is also a great unit when you have her. She's a paladin that can use staves as well as swords, so that gives her access to the fire sword, as well as just about any staff you want. She only has sea staves, but it's enough to like contribute. Use like a sleep staff on someone or restore staff if you need to. Very helpful. Very good unit overall, even indoors, because staffs are just always useful no matter what. And her magic is arguably the highest in the game, because she can get beyond the 20 cap using the fire sword, because it gives +5 magic. Just great. Much better than Conamore, who's like her counterpart, but he's really like he's either here or here. I'm gonna put him here for now because he's not bad at fighting per se, but fighting is all he can do, unlike Imelda, who if she were like rated for combat alone, it's like okay, but it's not great. It's alright basically. That's what you get. That's what you get. Connemore is more bulky, but his resistance isn't all that good. And late game, having magic or resistance, they're like the same stat in this game, is more important than defense almost. And Connemore has like no magic to speak of, and he has a cost, so that can make him a little bit fragile. He can still fight sort of, but not to a great extent. But at the same time, you don't really have to train him or anything, so he can still be alright. Same for Dermot. He is not broken or anything at fighting, but he has good pursuit critical. He has a good personal sword. I think it's called like the BO blade or the BO sword. Both him and Fergus can use it. If you didn't train Fergus, then he's the only person with like reasonable stats that can use it. If you did train him, I would probably give that to Fergus instead, but it depends on what you want out of your units. He's pretty ready. He can also use the Blaggy sword if you needed to, and he's the only pre-promote who can do that. So that might be useful against a certain late game boss. I don't really like have much experience with Dermot, but I know he can do alright in endgame. It's just his base level, just one watching Dundon's 0% growth run, so I think he's alright. Cius, I'm gonna put him up here. Seems a bit strange because we know this guy is like his alternative. You can only recruit one of Cius and Seti, but they're both like great units. But Cius, I guess I'll go first on him. He's an A-rank bishop, or an A-rank staff bishop that joins very late into the game, but having A-rank alone is good enough to be in great tier. And of course he also has a bunch of leadership stars to work with. Not as many as you might hope when you like see him earlier, but still enough to be contributing. A lot of people prefer Seti instead, and for good reason, or I guess I should call him Set. Set is also really good. Like that's an understatement of the year, of course. If you see him with whole Seti, you know why he's good. He's got plus 20 skill, plus 20 speed, super high might, 1-2 range, adapts everything, the whole package. He kills everything he touches, unless he gets like a 99 miss. Just incredibly powerful unit. Cius is not nearly as good at fighting. He has higher magic actually, but of course a worse tome to work with. But Cius can still kill some things with lightning tome, so he's not bad at fighting. It's just his Seti kind of outclasses him a lot in that regard. But at the same time, Cius doesn't cost a turn, so hey, LTC strats, you gotta pick Seti. I mean, you gotta pick Cius. Yay. Whew, last unit is Galzus, and Galzus of course also great at fighting. Like if you've seen Galzus at work, you know why he's amazing, why he's so powerful. He kills just about everything in one round, thanks to like Master Sword, Master Axe, Fire Sword, whatever. His starting inventory alone shows what he can do, but if you give him like a Rapier or an Iron Sword, he will still kill things probably. He's that strong. Really bulky too. Some slight issues against magic sometimes, but not enough to like make him any worse than this. Galzus is very good in like 2 maps in the game, but still good enough in those maps to make use of him. And yeah, there is the whole list. I was a little bit brief on most characters, but that allowed me to keep the video like sort of within length instead of like an hour long. So yeah, these characters, I recommend you field them if they make sense for a chapter. Like obviously, someone like Fergus is worse in an indoor map. You wouldn't field Karen in indoor maps, like that kind of stuff. But for the most part, these characters are always good throughout the whole thing. These are good, but with an asterisk, or they take some work to like get going. But they can be alright, and they're not bad at all. These units in a tier list setting, they will be bad, but they are still fun to use sometimes, and you can train them if you want to. It just takes a bit more work. But if you're enjoying that kind of thing, you should definitely do it. Yeah, I hope you like the list. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.